Disclaimer: this is audio horror fiction. If darkness or the creatures it holds scares you, leave now. Still listening? Good. Then let's begin. Annabeth was a quiet girl. At school, her teachers found her to be shy, but responsive to questions, particularly essays. One chilly day in late November, her English teacher, one Miss Dorothea Morris, decided a creative writing assignment was just the thing her students needed over their Thanksgiving holiday. Class, I'd like each of you to write a story about your family. It doesn't have to be true, but the characters must be created using your parents, siblings, grandparents, or any other people you are close to. Your stories will be due the first day of class after our holiday break. Remember to have fun with this assignment, she called after her students, most of whom were already on their way to the door. The bell had interrupted her last sentence. Annabeth was still at her desk, packing up her books and notebooks. She was smiling to herself. Miss Morris smiled as well. This assignment was sure to bring a girl like Annabeth out of her shell and allow her a little fun. Dorothea Morris thought little of Annabeth the rest of the day. Hers had been the last class Dorothea had before beginning her own Thanksgiving break, and she was jubilantly happy to be out of the school for a while and enjoy some time with her own family. Just as she drifted off to sleep, wrapped safe in her husband Robert's arms, she wondered dimly what the quiet little girl would write. The holiday went far more quickly than anyone would have liked, but Miss Morris didn't just work as a teacher, it was her calling. She hummed to herself, a stack of graded papers in a neat manila folder under her arm, as she walked into the familiar schoolhouse. She was intercepted within moments by the principal and a somber-looking man she had never met before. "Miss Morris, a word please?" No explanation was offered until she, Principal Rachel Flanders, and the strange man were safely in Miss Flanders' office with the door closed and the blinds drawn. "Dorothea, goodness, this is hard for me to say. I'll start somewhere simple. This is Dr. Michaels, the grief counselor assigned to our school for the next few weeks." Rachel Flanders' eyes seemed unfocused and a bit teary. Dorothea had known her for 10 years and had never seen her cry. She said nothing, but her expression was one of deep concern as Principal Flanders explained. "One of your students has experienced a terrible tragedy. The family of Annabeth Curtis was killed over the holidays." Dorothea Morris stood still, her eyes wide and staring as Dr. Michaels picked up the gruesome tale. The girl herself was spared. Authorities aren't sure why, but we should consider it a miracle and be thankful at least for that. I've already spoken with the responding officers, and because of the nature of the deaths, I was privy to more information than is usually allowed. Annabeth's parents and older brothers were, well, they seem to have been torn apart by some sort of animal. I know it's hard to hear, Miss Morris, but word gets out very quickly these days, and the students may be very frightened of what happened. We will need to say, with certainty, that whatever happened to Annabeth's family was a random event, and the authorities believe it was an animal. And they are searching for it. Dorothea Morris sat down shaking in the chair Rachel pulled out for her. Until this moment, Dorothea didn't know how she could feel numb and scared at the same time. Her stomach felt very cold. Before she could think of a better wording, the question slipped out. "But what about Annabeth?" Dr. Michaels looked uncomfortable then, more than he had when he told her about the deaths, the animal. He shifted his weight from his left foot to his right, then back again. "The girl is being cared for, but it's unlikely she'll return to school anytime soon." Annabeth's other teachers were told of the tragedy as they arrived, but Dorothea didn't stay to offer them support. Rachel had grasped her arm as she left the office, but hadn't spoke. Their eyes met for a moment, and Dorothea's subconscious was aware that the principal had looked scared. She didn't acknowledge this until much later. Dorothea sat down at her desk in the empty classroom and looked at the desk to the right, all the way in the back. Annabeth's desk. Other children in other classes sat there too throughout the day, but in her mind it was now Annabeth's desk, complete with capitalization for emphasis. She knew that, no matter what, she needed to teach today. Her students needed her, as much as they needed their other teachers, Dr. Michaels and their parents. Today would be hard, but she must face it. Once the decision was made, Dorothea let her body take over. Her hand automatically went to the power button for her computer. Swift fingertips typed in her password. Practiced habit opening up her teacher's email. There she stopped, frozen. After her usual emails from colleagues and a few memos from the school, there was an email from a student, Annabeth. It had been sent 3 days after the holiday break. The title was, The Curtis's Dragon. Trembling, Dorothea clicked the message. Dear Miss Morris, I was so grateful for this assignment and so proud of my story I wanted it to be the first one you read today. I know you want us to write extra drafts so we get it right, but I'm really happy with how the first draft goes. This story doesn't start with a faraway land, or once upon a time. It is happening now, not far from you. This is the story of the Curtis's Dragon. Annabeth Curtis's best friend was a dragon. It had no name because Annabeth never needed to call for it. The dragon came every night and sat on the end of her bed, making the wood creak and bow. Annabeth told her dragon about her day, and it always listened patiently, even when she cried. She cried most nights, usually because her family was cruel to her. Annabeth's father was a drunk, and he frequently hit Annabeth's mother and her older brother James. Her mother would cry and hide in her bedroom most of the day and had no time for Annabeth. James was always angry, and since he was too small to fight father, he hurt Annabeth instead. Many years passed like this until one beautiful day a fairy told Annabeth about a magic spell. It was a spell of words, and it would bind her family onto paper forever, where they could never hurt her again. That night, Annabeth told the dragon about the fairy and the spell. Oh yes, whispered the dragon from the foot of the bed. That sounds like a good spell. How will it work? Annabeth told the dragon she was going to write a magic story where her family was kind and treated each other nicely. She giggled and added, and if they don't, you'll eat them up, won't you? Annabeth fell asleep with the dragon protecting her dreams. The next day she wrote her story. It was good, she thought, but when she tried to read it to her mother, she was ignored. James laughed at her and told her she was stupid. Father walked in through the big front door and he seemed calmer than usual. Not as scary as he usually was. James smirked at Annabeth and tore the story from her hands, the crisp new paper giving her a paper cut. Annabeth thinks we're not good enough, Dad, James yelled as he raced towards Father. She wrote a story about us for school. Annabeth was very scared while she watched Father's face get dark and dangerous while he read the story. She hadn't wanted him to read it. She knew it'd make him mad. Father's face got very hard, and he crumpled up her story and threw it towards the fireplace. She went to pick it up, but he grabbed her arm so hard and he dragged her to the kitchen. You think you should be treated like a princess, do you? He yelled. Well, in my house, even princesses get a beating if they're snotty little ingrates. Mother had come out and looked like she wanted to say something, but just stood right outside the kitchen. James was still smirking because he wasn't the one in trouble. Father slapped Annabeth across the face and he roared, There are no dragons! And Annabeth's dragon whispered, But there are. The dragon tore through the house, biting and clawing the horrible family to bits. At last, Annabeth was safe. Dorothea Morris closed out her email. Then she stood up, gathered her things, and walked out of the classroom, down the hall to the main office. She informed the secretary that she absolutely could not teach after hearing of the horrible deaths of Annabeth Curtis's family, and needed to go home. Dorothea's own children were entering the main doors, having just gotten off the bus with their friends. She liked to let them ride the bus so they could get a little extra sleep before school, and it was nice for them to spend time with their friends on the ride to school. Today, she took her children by the hands as they walked in and led them straight back out. What's going on, Mom? Her older son Brian asked. Something bad happened during the break, boys, and I thought it'd be best if we spent one more day at home together. Even teachers don't always want to go back to school. She tried to smile warmly. Her younger son Scott clung to her arm. New things always frightened him a little, and Dorothea had never pulled them out of school unless they were sick. When she and her boys were back at home, she called Robert at work and asked if he could take the day off. He told her he'd try, and they heard about the Curtises at work. Dorothea hung up the phone and brought out a big blanket from her and Rob's bedroom. She wrapped herself up with the boys and watched morning cartoons with them. She'd tell them about everything later. For herself, she vowed to send Annabeth's story straight to the trash tomorrow. Something within her was desperately afraid and wanted Dr. Michaels to read it, to give it to the police. But her sensible schoolteacher grown-up mind reminded her there are no dragons. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to help feed the dark machine. If you have a story that you would like for me to read, check the description below for how to send me your stories.